The hotel room was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the air conditioner and the occasional distant honk from the city streets below. Golden light from the late afternoon sun streamed through the curtains, painting soft patterns across the carpet. Anna Williams stood by the window, her hands loosely clasped in front of her, staring at the skyline. There was a calmness to the view, yet beneath it, a tug of longing pulled at her chest, a reminder of a life she sometimes felt she was only half living for Anna. This trip had been meant as a small escape, a brief weekend getaway with her son Ethan to a city they had never visited. But as she watched him unpack his small bag with quiet enthusiasm, she felt a deeper sense of anticipation, mixed with the faint ache of unspoken thoughts she had carried for years. Life had been steady, predictable, and safe. But sometimes that safety came at the cost of missing something essential. Something she couldn't quite name. Ethan moved across the room with the kind of energy that only children possess. A mix of curiosity and careful attention. He paused in front of the large mirror mounted on the wall, his reflection staring back at him with the innocence of youth, yet the subtle emergence of growing self-awareness. Anna found herself drawn to him, to the way his small hand adjusted the collar of his shirt and the slight crease of concentration on his forehead. "Ethan, dinner will be ready soon," she called softly, forcing herself to break the spell of watching him. He didn't respond at first, only glancing at her through the mirror with eyes that seemed deeper than his years. Anna felt a flutter in her chest, an odd mixture of pride and curiosity. She had always known her son was thoughtful, but this quiet, almost private moment felt like a window into a world she hadn't been allowed into before. As she moved closer, she noticed the way his shoulders held a small weight, invisible to anyone but her. Children often carried their own little worlds silently, and tonight it seemed Ethan had a secret. Though whether it was joy or uncertainty, she could not yet tell. Anna's heart softened. She knelt beside him, careful not to disturb the reflection of light on the polished floor, and tried to speak without breaking the fragile quiet. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated. He turned slowly to face her, his gaze steady but thoughtful. For a moment, words seemed to tangle in the air, unsaid yet powerful in their silence. Then, in a voice so quiet Anna had to lean closer to hear, he spoke. I think I'm ready, Mom." Anna froze. "Ready for what?" Her mind raced, yet she saw no fear in his expression, a gentle, sincere determination that made her heart swell. She reached for his small hand, and he let her take it, his grip tentative but trusting. "Ready for what, honey?" she asked again, her curiosity stronger than ever. Ethan looked back at the mirror, studying himself as though seeking the answer there. "To try new things. To be brave. To see who I really am." Anna felt a lump rise in her throat. The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of something profound, a quiet courage. A willingness to explore life beyond the familiar. She had always tried to teach him about courage, about honesty, and about the quiet strength found in small acts of self-reflection. But tonight, he had applied those lessons to himself in a way that left her both proud and unexpectedly emotional. She squeezed his hand gently. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. More than I can say. But always remember, you don't have to face anything alone. I'll always be here." He smiled, a small, thoughtful smile that made Anna's chest ache in a way only a parent can understand. It wasn't just happiness. There was depth there, a sense of discovery, a hint of dreams quietly forming in the corners of his mind. The city outside was slowly dimming as evening approached. The golden sunlight faded into soft pinks and purples, casting a warm glow over the room. Anna and Ethan stood together in front of the mirror. Two reflections side by side, one of a mother, one of a son, but both caught in the delicate, invisible threads of thought, hope, and quiet longing. Anna felt a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. This trip was more than a simple getaway. It was becoming a gentle revelation of hidden desires, whispered thoughts, and subtle dreams. In the soft hum of the hotel room, she realized that sometimes the smallest moments, like a child's glance in the mirror or a quiet word spoken in confidence, could carry the deepest significance. And as Ethan turned to her again, the light catching his hair just right, Anna knew that this weekend would be remembered not for the city they visited or the sights they saw, but for the quiet, emotional discoveries they were beginning to share. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt the possibility of change, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the soft, gentle shift that starts quietly and grows steadily like sunlight spilling across a room. And in that moment, she understood that her son had just opened a door, not only to his own courage, but to a new chapter in both of their lives. The hotel room had grown quiet, the soft pink glow of sunset fading into the gentle blues of evening. Anna sat by the window, watching Ethan wander toward the small table where he had carefully laid out his sketchbook and colored pencils. He had always loved drawing, a quiet habit that revealed his thoughts in ways words sometimes could not. As she looked at him, Anna's mind drifted, slipping back through the years to another time, one that had shaped her heart in ways she was only now beginning to understand. It was a memory she seldom shared, a series of small moments that felt like tiny threads woven into the fabric of her life. She remembered the first time she had truly noticed Daniel, the man who had once made her heart flutter with a quiet intensity. It had been a rainy afternoon in a little cafe, the kind where the windows fog slightly and the smell of fresh coffee mingles with the sound of soft conversation. She had been sitting alone, a notebook open before her, writing thoughts she couldn't yet share with anyone. Daniel had entered with the ease of someone who didn't notice the world rushing past him. He had chosen the seat across from hers, not too close, not too far, and had smiled politely when their eyes met. Their first conversation had been simple, small talk about the weather, the book she was writing, the music playing faintly in the background, but something in his tone, calm and attentive, had made her pause. It wasn't a dramatic love at first sight. It was gentler than that. There had been laughter, quiet smiles exchanged over spilled coffee, and long silences that felt like understanding rather than awkwardness. Every word, every glance had left a soft impression on her heart, the kind of memory that doesn't scream for attention but quietly lingers. Days had turned into weeks, and those quiet meetings had become something she looked forward to with a subtle eagerness. They shared thoughts about books, the city streets, dreams of travel, and small hopes for the future. Even in the silence, there had been a rhythm, a comfort in simply being near someone who saw you clearly and without judgment. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Daniel had moved to another city for work, a distance too great to bridge with weekend visits and long phone calls. Anna had tried to keep in touch, and for a while it had worked: letters, brief messages, shared jokes, but gradually the frequency faded. Timing, circumstance, and responsibility had pulled them apart, leaving only memories. Anna shook herself gently from the daydream, looking at Ethan as he sketched a small figure with a thoughtful expression. There was something about these moments of quiet reflection, hers and his, that made her realize how much of life's beauty exists in gentle, fleeting experiences. Just like her memories of Daniel, these small instances shape who we are and how we see the world. She remembered the last time she had seen him, standing at the train station with a small suitcase, his eyes bright with hope yet clouded with the inevitability of goodbye. They had hugged, a quiet embrace full of unspoken words. She had felt a tug in her chest, knowing that life was moving in one direction and they were moving in another. And yet, even as years passed, the echoes of those afternoons in the cafe had stayed with her. They had shaped her ideas of patience, kindness, and the gentle unfolding of love. She had learned that connection is not always measured in the intensity of moments, but in the sincerity of attention and the quiet acknowledgement of presence. Anna smiled softly to herself, thinking of the little gestures that had meant so much: the way he had noticed her favorite pastry in the cafe display, the careful way he had tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the gentle encouragement when she doubted her own writing. They were simple, ordinary things, yet they had lingered in her heart long after the city streets had carried him away. As she glanced at Ethan, now pausing to look out the window at the city lights, Anna felt the intertwining of past and present. The quiet courage her son had shown earlier, the willingness to see himself, clearly reminded her of her own younger self, sitting in that cafe, learning to embrace honesty and hope. It was in the silence of these memories she realized that the heart's longing is most deeply felt. There was no pain, no anger, only a sweet nostalgia. A gentle ache for moments that had shaped her, and for connections that had left their mark, even if only briefly. The night settled softly around the hotel, the city outside glowing with scattered lights. Anna turned to Ethan, seeing in him a reflection not only of his own budding awareness, but also of the quiet and enduring lessons of her own heart. And in that shared quiet, she understood that love, like courage and hope, often begins in the smallest, simplest moments. Tonight, the past and the present existed side by side, whispering softly to her, "The heart remembers. It grows, and sometimes, even when distance separates people, the echoes of meaningful connections stay with us forever." The hotel lobby was softly lit, the glow of chandeliers reflecting in polished marble floors. Anna walked beside Ethan, who carried a small backpack slung over one shoulder, humming quietly to himself. The weekend had been calm, almost unremarkable in its simplicity, but as they approached the cafe attached to the hotel, something shifted in the air, subtle yet undeniable. A voice, familiar and unassuming, reached her ears. She turned slightly and her heart skipped a beat. There, standing in line for a coffee, was Daniel. It had been years, so many years, that she almost didn't recognize him. Yet, in that moment, every memory of the cafe, the rainy afternoons, the quiet laughter, and the unspoken understanding came rushing back. Daniel's eyes met hers. There was a pause, a fraction of a second that felt both infinite and fleeting. No words were spoken yet, but the familiarity was enough to draw a small, uncertain smile from Anna. He smiled back, a little hesitant, but with warmth that melted the years between them. "Anna," he said softly, as though testing whether the sound of her name was still the same in the present. "Yes." "Daniel," she replied, her voice calm but tinged with surprise. "It's been a long time." He nodded, a faint laugh escaping him. "Too long," he admitted. "I didn't expect to see you here." Anna glanced at Ethan, who was quietly watching them from a few steps away, his curiosity evident but respectful. She realized that in this moment, the past and present had collided, and she had a choice to remain cautious, to retreat into polite distance, or to allow herself to acknowledge what had lingered in her heart all these years. Daniel stepped a little closer, but not too close, respecting the quiet space between them. "I've thought about those afternoons in the cafe more than I realized," he said, almost as if confessing a secret. "They meant a lot to me." Anna's chest tightened. She had thought of those same afternoons countless times, replaying the laughter, the small gestures, the gentle encouragement they had shared. "I've remembered them too," she admitted, her tone soft. "More than I probably should have." There was a pause as they looked at one another, the kind of silence that feels alive rather than awkward. Words had always been insufficient for what they felt then, and somehow time hadn't changed that. Instead, it had added a layer of appreciation for the moments they had, brief as they were. Daniel's eyes flicked toward Ethan, then back to Anna. "This is your son?" he asked, his voice gentle, curious, and warm. "Yes," Anna said, her smile widening. "This is Ethan." Ethan stepped forward, offering a shy but friendly wave. "Hi," he said quietly. "Mom talks about you sometimes." Daniel knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "Hello, Ethan. It's really nice to meet you." His warmth and sincerity were immediate, and Ethan's face lit up with the kind of trust children instinctively sense in adults. Anna felt a rush of gratitude, seeing this interaction unfold. It wasn't about rekindling old romantic feelings. It was about connection, about how people from our past can reappear in ways that bring clarity, comfort, and even joy. She realized that Daniel had been a part of shaping her sense of hope, courage, and understanding. And now she could see that influence extending to her son as well. They walked to a small table in the cafe, the atmosphere quiet and relaxed. Conversation flowed naturally. First about neutral topics, the city, the hotel, a small art exhibit Daniel had recently visited, but slowly the conversation deepened, touching on shared memories and reflections. "You haven't changed much," Daniel said lightly, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "Still calm, still thoughtful. I remember the way you used to notice details that no one else would." Anna chuckled softly, feeling a warmth she hadn't expected. "And you've still noticed the little things, too. Some habits never fade, do they?" He smiled, eyes crinkling in that familiar way. "Some things are worth keeping." It wasn't romantic in the dramatic sense. There was no intensity, no rush, no expectation. It was quieter than that, filled with respect, understanding, and a gentle acknowledgement of the past. Anna realized that this meeting was a gift, a reminder of how human connections can linger, shape us, and return in the most unexpected, comforting ways. As they talked, Anna noticed Ethan sketching quietly in his notebook, occasionally glancing up to see them laugh or exchange a glance. She felt a sense of completion, a gentle satisfaction in seeing the past and present overlap so naturally. When they finally stood to leave, Daniel spoke softly. "I'm glad we ran into each other. I've missed this. I've missed knowing you." Anna nodded, her heart quietly full. "Me too, Daniel. Sometimes life gives us these unexpected moments. And maybe that's enough for now." Outside, the city lights twinkled as the evening settled in. Anna held Ethan's hand, Daniel walking a few steps beside them. And in that gentle alignment of past and present, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, a quiet reassurance that connections, no matter how distant, have a way of returning when they are meant to. The airplane hummed softly beneath them as it leveled off into the clouds. Emma gazed out the window, watching the sun shimmer on the horizon, turning the sky into a gentle blend of rose and gold. Her heart felt full, yet light, a strange mix of nostalgia, hope, and quiet anticipation. Across from her, Noah sat, his gaze occasionally drifting toward her, thoughtful and calm. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the engines, the gentle sway of the plane, and the soft chatter of other passengers created a cocoon of intimacy, a private space in which words could hold weight, and silences could speak just as loudly. Finally, Noah turned to her, his expression open and sincere. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about today," he began, his voice soft but steady. "About how some connections, no matter how much time passes, never really leave us, I think. I've been holding on to that without even realizing it." Emma's breath caught slightly. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of years, the quiet longing, the unspoken understanding, and the gentle admiration that had always lingered between them. She felt warmth rise in her chest, not from surprise, but from recognition. She knew exactly what he meant. "I understand," she said softly, her fingers brushing the edge of her notebook in her lap. "I've felt the same way for a long time. Sometimes you don't realize how deeply someone has touched your life until they appear again." Noah smiled, a quiet, reflective smile. "I guess that's the thing about life. It doesn't always give us the right timing, but maybe it gives us another chance when we least expect it." Emma nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude for this moment. There was no rush, no expectation, only the gentle unfolding of truth, the quiet acknowledgement of what had always been there beneath the surface. She thought of all the afternoons spent in the garden, the small discoveries, the laughter, the soft silence that had connected them so effortlessly. And now, years later, that bond had returned, renewed in a way both familiar and new. As the flight continued, they spoke more freely, sharing stories of the years apart, the little victories and quiet struggles, the dreams they had pursued and the ones they had let go. Each word deepened the sense of connection. Each pause reinforced the comfort of being understood. Emma realized that this journey wasn't just about revisiting memories. It was about recognizing how those experiences had shaped them both, guiding them to this precise moment of quiet understanding. Then, as the plane began its descent, Noah reached into his bag and pulled out a small folded notebook. He handed it to her, his hands steady but careful. "I've been keeping this," he said softly. "It's some thoughts, memories, and reflections from the years we were apart. I thought maybe you'd like to see it." Emma opened the notebook, feeling a rush of emotion. Inside were sketches, observations of the world, little notes he had written over the years, many of them recalling the summers they had shared, the quiet moments under the oak tree, the small wonders they had noticed together. She felt a lump in her throat, touched by the thoughtfulness and care behind each page. "It's beautiful, Noah," she whispered, her eyes glistening slightly. "Thank you for sharing this with me. It means more than I can say." He smiled, a hint of relief softening his features. "I just wanted you to know that those moments are moments. They stayed with me. And seeing you again today, it feels like I've found a piece of myself I didn't even realize I'd lost." Emma closed the notebook gently, her heart full. "I feel the same way. It's strange how life works sometimes. The people who shape us never really leave, do they? They stay quietly, and then one day, they reappear." As the plane touched down, the city below glimmering in the afternoon light, Emma felt a sense of clarity and peace she hadn't known she needed. Whatever happened next, she knew this moment, this quiet, heartfelt reunion would stay with her forever. Walking through the terminal side by side, they didn't rush. Their steps were unhurried, their conversations soft and thoughtful. Emma realized that the journey hadn't just been a flight from one city to another, it had been a journey into understanding, into recognizing the quiet beauty of human connection, and into honoring the feelings that shape us without ever forcing them. When it came time to part, there was no dramatic farewell, no hurried goodbyes. Instead, there was a soft, lingering acknowledgement, a shared smile, a gentle squeeze of the hand, a promise unspoken but understood. "Thank you, Noah," Emma said softly, "for today, and for everything you've shared with me, even when I didn't know I needed it." He smiled, eyes warm and reflective. "And thank you, Emma, for remembering and for letting me remember with you. Life's quieter moments, they're often the most meaningful." As they went their separate ways, Emma walked toward the exit, looking back one last time. She felt a gentle, deep gratitude, not just for the person beside her, but for herself, for the capacity to feel, to reflect, and to welcome the unexpected. She realized that the heart grows quietly, in patient, thoughtful ways, and that understanding, connection, and respect for emotions could be as profound as any grand gesture. Sometimes, she thought, life doesn't shout at whispers. And in those whispers, we find the truths that matter most, the connections that endure, and the hope that carries us forward into every new chapter. Quietly, beautifully, and fully alive,